Captain Dae-ho Kim stood in the center of the massive chamber and felt very small. The ceiling stretched so high above him that clouds actually formed near the top. Around him, on platforms that rose like cliffs, sat representatives from 47 different alien species. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some were just floating clouds of gas held together by force fields. All of them were looking down at him with what he could only describe as contempt. Ambassador Ji-woo Park stood beside him, her hands clasped behind her back. She looked calm, but Dae-ho had served with her for 5 years. He could see the tension in her shoulders. Behind them, Dr. Hana Lee adjusted her tablet nervously. Lieutenant Tae-yang Choi kept his hand near his sidearm, even though weapons were supposedly forbidden in the council chamber. The Vrelian ambassador spoke first. His name was something unpronounceable, so humans just called him High Speaker. He was tall, maybe 3 meters, with silver skin that gleamed under the chamber lights. His voice boomed through translator speakers. The evidence is clear. Humanity has violated the colonization accords. 3 colony ships, 15,000 settlers, all placed on worlds that belong to the Vrelian Dominion by ancient territorial rights. Ji-woo stepped forward. Those worlds were surveyed. We found no settlements, no markers, no evidence of any claims. The surveys are all documented and were shared with this council 2 years ago. No one objected then. You did not look deep enough, the High Speaker said. Our claims are ancient, from before your species learned to make fire. The law is clear. You will evacuate immediately. You will surrender your colony ships, and the mission commander will face execution as an example to your species. Dae-ho felt his blood go cold. The mission commander was Engineer Sung-min Bae. He was 28 years old. He had a wife and a baby daughter back on Earth. That's insane, Dae-ho said, stepping forward. He followed every regulation. He broke no laws. Silence! The High Speaker's voice cracked like thunder. You are not permitted to speak, Captain. Only ambassadors may address this council. Ji-woo held up a hand to Dae-ho, asking him to be calm. She turned back to the council. Honored representatives, I ask you to review the evidence. We have done nothing wrong. These worlds were empty, free for colonization under galactic law. If the Vrelian Dominion had valid claims, why wait until now to present them? For 3 hours, Ji-woo argued. She showed surveys. She quoted laws. She appealed to fairness and justice. Dae-ho watched the alien representatives and felt his hope dying. None of them seemed to care about evidence. None of them seemed to care about justice. They had already decided. When the vote came, it was 43-4 against humanity. 4 species abstained. None voted in humanity's favor except the 1 human seat. The verdict is final, the High Speaker announced. Humanity will evacuate all colonies in the outer reaches within 30 days. All vessels will be surrendered, and the mission commander will be delivered to Vrelian custody for execution. This is the will of the council. Ji-woo's face went pale. You cannot be serious. You would execute an innocent man? He is not innocent. He is an example. Your species grows too fast, expands too aggressively. You must learn your place. That was when Dae-ho understood. This was never about territorial rights. This was never about laws. The council feared humanity. They feared how quickly humans learned, how fast they built, how far they spread. This trial was designed to break humanity's spirit. We reject this verdict, Ji-woo said quietly. We will not surrender Sung-min Bae. We will not surrender our ships, and we will not abandon our people. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. The High Speaker raised his hand for silence. Then you reject the authority of this council? We reject injustice, Ji-woo said. We reject tyranny disguised as law, and we reject any authority built on fear rather than fairness. So be it. The High Speaker made a gesture. Doors around the chamber opened. Armored figures poured in. Council enforcers, the police force that maintained order across galactic space. They were heavily armed and their weapons were already raised. You are all under arrest, the High Speaker announced. Resistance to council authority is a crime punishable by death. Tae-yang moved fast. He pulled Ji-woo back, putting himself between her and the enforcers. Dae-ho grabbed Hana and did the same. The other humans in their delegation formed a defensive circle. Stand down, the lead enforcer shouted. On the ground, now! We are a diplomatic delegation, Ji-woo called out. We have immunity. You cannot arrest us. Immunity is revoked. You rejected council authority. You have no rights here. The enforcers moved closer. Their weapons hummed with charging energy. Dae-ho looked around desperately. There were maybe 20 humans in the chamber. There were over 100 enforcers. "Please," Jiwoo said, stepping forward with her hands raised. "There's no need for violence. We'll leave peacefully. Just let us return to our ship." "Too late for that," the high speaker said, and Daeho heard something in his voice that made his stomach drop. This was planned. All of it. The trial. The verdict. This confrontation. It was all designed to end exactly this way. The first enforcer fired without warning. The energy bolt hit one of the human aides, a young woman named Mi-kyung Seo. She was someone's daughter. Someone's friend. She had dreams and plans and a whole life ahead of her. The bolt burned through her chest and she fell without a sound. For one frozen second, everyone stared. Then chaos exploded. The enforcers opened fire. Jiwoo screamed for everyone to run. Taeyang returned fire, his sidearm barely making a dent in the enforcer's armor. Humans scattered, running for any exit they could find. But the enforcers were everywhere. Daeho saw it happen. Jiwoo pushed Hana toward a side door. An enforcer's weapon tracked them. Jiwoo threw herself in front of Hana just as the bolt fired. It hit her in the back. She fell into Hana's arms, her blood spreading across the white floor. "No." Daeho grabbed them both, dragging them toward the exit. Taeyang and 3 other surviving humans laid down, covering fire. Behind them, bodies lay scattered across the chamber floor. 17 humans would never go home again. They fought their way to the docking bay. Every corridor was a battle. Every turn brought more enforcers. But Taeyang and his security team were well trained. They made the enemy pay for every meter. When they reached the morning calm, Daeho carried Jiwoo up the ramp himself. Her blood soaked his uniform. Her breathing was shallow and weak. "Get us out of here," he shouted to the bridge crew. The ship shuddered as it launched. Energy bolts hammered against the shields. More enforcer ships were already scrambling to pursue. In the medical bay, Daeho held Jiwoo's hand while the doctor worked frantically. Hana knelt beside them, tears streaming down her face. "Did we escape?" Jiwoo whispered. "Yes," Daeho said. "We're going home." "Good." She coughed and blood appeared on her lips. "Tell them. Tell Earth everything. Tell them what happened here. You'll tell them yourself. You're going to be fine." Jiwoo smiled sadly. She knew better. "Tell them to remember. Remember our names. Remember what they did." She died 3 minutes later. Daeho walked to the bridge. His uniform was still wet with her blood. The crew looked at him with shock and grief and growing rage. "Record everything," he said quietly. "Every second of video from the chamber. Every scan. Every piece of evidence. Transmit it all to Earth on every channel. Tight beam, broadcast, everything." "Sir?" the communications officer asked. "They want to know their place?" Daeho stared at the view screen, at the council station shrinking behind them. "We'll show them. We'll show them exactly what humanity does when you shed our blood in a chamber of peace. Send the message. Tell Earth to prepare. Tell them this is the day everything changes." Behind them, the morning calm limped toward human space, damaged and pursued. But the message was already gone, racing ahead at faster than light speeds. And on Earth, billions would watch Ambassador Jiwoo Park die. They would see her raise her hands in peace. They would see her cut down by those who claimed to represent justice. The Council thought this would break humanity. They thought humans would submit. They were wrong. This was not an ending. This was the spark that would ignite a fire across the galaxy. This was the day the Council signed their own extinction warrant with human blood. The footage played on every screen across Earth. In homes, in offices, in public squares, billions of humans watched the same scene over and over. Ambassador Jiwoo Park standing with her hands raised. The enforcer raising his weapon. The flash of energy. Her body falling. The screams. The blood President Hyunwoo Kang sat in his office and watched it for the 100th time. He was a calm man, known for careful decisions and measured words. But his hands shook as they gripped the armrests of his chair. His senior staff stood around him in silence. No one knew what to say. "How many?" he asked quietly. 17 confirmed dead, Admiral Sora Nam replied. Her voice was flat, empty. "Another 8 wounded. Captain Kim got most of them out. 17. The president closed his eyes. 17 human beings murdered in a diplomatic chamber, under a flag of peace. "The Council is sending delegations," his chief of staff said. "They want to negotiate. They're offering compromises." "What kind of compromises?" "We can keep the colonies if we pay reparations. Accept permanent junior status in the council. Acknowledge their authority in all matters. The president opened his eyes. They were cold now. Hard. What's the status of Project Wrath? General Min Seo Kwan stepped forward. She was the head of Military Strategic Command. Ready to proceed, sir. We've been working on it quietly for 5 years, ever since we realized the council might turn on us. We just need your authorization. And the research programs? Scientist Jae Sung Yoon pulled up a holographic display. We've made breakthroughs the council never imagined possible. Relativistic kinetic weapons, quantum entangled command systems, automated war fleets that don't need crews, and the biological research is complete. We can target specific species at the genetic level. The president stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see people gathered in the streets. They held candles. They held pictures of the 17 dead. The grief was giving way to something else now. Something darker and more dangerous. What are they calling it? He asked Jan out there. What are people saying? They want justice, Admiral Sora said. They want the council to pay. No, the president turned. They want revenge. And they're right to want it. For 5 years I've worked to keep us peaceful. To follow their rules, to prove we could be good members of the galactic community, and they rewarded that by murdering our people in cold blood. He walked back to his desk and pressed a button. The room's displays changed, showing massive industrial complexes deep in human space, shipyards the size of cities, factories that ran day and night, weapons testing ranges on remote moons. For 5 years we also prepared for this day. We hoped it wouldn't come. But we're not fools. We knew the council feared us. We knew they might try to stop our expansion by force. So we built. We researched. We made ourselves ready. What are your orders, sir? General Min Seo asked. President Hyunwoo walked to a safe built into his office wall. He entered a code and removed a single data chip. He held it up for everyone to see. This chip contains authorization codes for Project Wrath, full mobilization of our secret fleet, deployment of every weapon we've developed, economic warfare, information warfare, and if necessary, biological warfare. He paused. I never wanted to use this. I hoped I could leave office and destroy it. But they've left us no choice. He inserted the chip into his desk terminal. Red lights appeared across every display. Alerts sounded. Deep in hidden bases across human space, massive doors began to open. Ships that had been built in secret started powering up their engines. Weapon systems came online. Soldiers reported to their stations. What do we tell the council delegations? The chief of staff asked. Nothing. Send them away. No words. No negotiations. No acknowledgement. We're done talking. They'll take that as a declaration of war. Good. Let them. We didn't start this war. They did when they murdered Jiwoo Park and 16 other innocents. We're just going to finish it. Admiral Sora pulled up a tactical display. We need time to fully mobilize. 6 months minimum. You have it. Close all borders. No council ships enter human space. No communications answered. Let them wonder what we're doing. Let them fear. Scientist Jae Sung looked worried. Sir, some of these weapons, once we use them, we can't go back. The galaxy will fear us. They'll see us as monsters. They already see us as threats. The only question is whether we're threats they can push around or threats they need to respect. Jiwoo believed in peace. She believed in diplomacy. She died for those beliefs. The president's voice broke slightly. We honor her by making sure no human ever dies that way again. We honor her by making sure the council never forgets the cost of human blood. Over the next 6 months, humanity went dark. Every human diplomat withdrew from council space. Every embassy closed. The borders sealed shut. Council ships that approached were turned away without a word. Attempts at communication went unanswered. The council thought humanity was preparing to negotiate from a position of strength. They were wrong. Deep in human space, Admiral Sora oversaw the largest military buildup in human history. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels switched to warships. Factories that made civilian goods started making weapons. Scientists who had been researching medicine turned their knowledge to creating targeted diseases. Dr. Hana Lee had changed. The gentle xenobiologist who once loved studying alien cultures now spent her days designing biological weapons. She worked 18-hour days, driven by the image of Jiwoo dying in her arms. This one targets Vrelian neural systems, she explained to a military observer. It's airborne, highly contagious, fatality rate of 98%. It would kill every Vrelian in an infected area within a week. Will we use it? The observer asked. I hope not. But if they force us to choose between their species and ours, I won't hesitate. Captain Deho, now promoted to Commodore, trained with the new fleet. The ships were unlike anything humanity had built before. Fast. Deadly. Automated systems meant one human could control dozens of drones. Quantum drives meant they could appear anywhere without warning. He visited the families of those who died. Every single one. He stood in their homes and looked at pictures of people who would never come home. He attended memorial services. He listened to mothers weep for their children. Jiwoo's wife, Sujin Park, invited him to dinner one evening. They sat in silence for a long time, neither knowing what to say. Finally, Sujin spoke. She believed in them. The council. She thought they wanted peace as much as we did. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. Be furious. And don't come back until they remember her name. Until they remember all their names, Deho nodded slowly. I promise you. When this is over, every species in the galaxy will know Jiwoo Park's name. They'll know what they lost when they killed her. As the 6 months passed, the council grew nervous. They sent more delegations. All were turned away. They sent messages offering better terms. All went unanswered. They positioned scout ships near human borders to watch for military buildup. Those scouts detected something terrifying. Energy signatures consistent with thousands of new shipyards. Industrial activity on a scale that seemed impossible. The heat from manufacturing could be detected from light years away. Something was being built. Something massive. The council called emergency sessions. Species accused each other of bringing this disaster upon them. The Vrelians insisted humanity would back down. Other species weren't so sure. Then one day the borders opened. But nothing came out. No messages, no ships. Just open space. The council sent a delegation through. They found human space empty. No defenses, no patrols. It seemed abandoned. They pushed deeper, trying to find Earth, trying to make contact. They found Earth easily enough. It was right where it had always been. But something was wrong. The planet was surrounded by thousands of automated defense platforms. The Sol system bristled with weapons. And in orbit, waiting like silent predators, were ships. Thousands of ships. Ships with designs the council had never seen before. The delegation transmitted a message. We come in peace. We seek to negotiate an end to hostilities. The response was simple. It came from Admiral Sora herself. There will be no negotiations. There will be justice. You have 1 day to evacuate all personnel from Vrelian border regions. After that, we're coming through. And we won't stop until the council surrenders those responsible for the massacre or ceases to exist. Choose wisely. The delegation fled. They raced back to council space with their footage and their warnings. The council convened to watch the recordings. They saw Earth's defenses. They saw the fleet. They saw humanity's cold resolve. High Speaker Velcor stood before the council. This is a bluff. They're trying to frighten us. Humanity cannot possibly have built all of that in 6 months. They had longer than 6 months. One of the other species representatives said quietly, they've been preparing for years. They knew this day might come. We should have known too. It doesn't matter. We outnumber them. We have 47 species. They're just one. One species that just built a fleet bigger than our entire combined forces. One species that's angry enough to use it. The council voted to mobilize. It was too late to back down now. Too much pride was at stake. Too much power. If they surrendered to humanity's demands, the council's authority would be broken forever. They didn't realize that authority was already dead. It died the moment they shed human blood in a chamber of peace. Everything that came after was just humanity teaching them that lesson. The Vrelian colony world of Thessar Prime was celebrating. It was the Day of Ascension, the most important holiday in Vrelian culture, the day their species founded the Galactic Council thousands of years ago. Millions gathered in the capital city for parades and ceremonies. Children waved flags. Music filled the air. No one suspected anything was wrong. In orbit, Vrelian defense satellites tracked exactly nothing. Their sensors showed empty space, normal background radiation, no threats. The system's defense fleet was in parade formation, their weapons powered down for the celebration. Then, at exactly 4 a.m. local time, the stars changed. One moment, empty space. The next moment, hundreds of human ships appeared. They didn't arrive from any direction.
They simply
materialized, their quantum drives dropping them out of higher dimensions directly into orbit. The Vrelian sensors screamed warnings, but there was no time to react. Commodore Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution. Around him, holographic displays showed the entire human fleet in perfect formation. Every ship was in position. Every weapon was ready. He opened a broadcast on all frequencies. People of Thesar Prime, this is Commodore Dae-ho Kim of the United Earth Fleet. I am broadcasting on all channels. I want you to hear this. I need you to understand this. On the planet below, millions of Vrelians stopped their celebrations. They looked up at the sky. Some ran for shelters. Some just stared. The broadcast appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device. 8 months ago, your leaders murdered 17 human diplomats in the council chamber. They killed them under a flag of peace. They killed them for the crime of defending human rights. One of those killed was Ambassador Ji-woo Park. She believed in peace. She believed that different species could live together in harmony. She died believing that. Your leaders proved her wrong. Dae-ho paused. On his display, he could see the panic spreading across the planet. Good. Let them feel what those diplomats felt. Let them know fear. This is humanity's reply. For Ji-woo Park. For the 17 souls murdered in your name. For every human who trusted in galactic law. Watch. Learn. And tell your leaders what happens when you shed human blood. The human fleet opened fire. But they didn't target cities. They didn't target civilians. Every shot was carefully aimed at military installations. Orbital defense platforms exploded in silence. Ground-based missile sites vanished in flashes of kinetic strikes. Command bunkers buried deep underground were hit by weapons that drilled through meters of rock before detonating. The Vrelian defense fleet tried to respond. Their ships broke formation and charged the human vessels. It was a mistake. The human ships moved like nothing the Vrelians had ever seen. They were faster, more agile. Their weapons fired with impossible precision, and they fought in perfect coordination, like a single organism with 1,000 bodies. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, every Vrelian military installation on Thesar Prime was destroyed. Every defense satellite was debris. Every warship was either destroyed or disabled. And not a single civilian building had been touched. Not one city had been damaged. The humans had demonstrated surgical precision. Then just as suddenly as they arrived, the human fleet vanished. They jumped away, leaving the planet defenseless but alive, leaving the population terrified but unharmed. But before they left, Dae-ho sent one more message. This one wasn't just to Thesar Prime. It was broadcast to every council world, every species, every government and every citizen. This was mercy. This was a warning. You took 17 lives in the name of law. We took none in the name of justice. But know this, we have marked every Vrelian world. We have marked every species that supported them. For every human world you threatened, we have marked 10 of yours. For every ship you seized, we've claimed 100. For every drop of human blood shed in your chamber of lies, we will drown a star system in fire if you force our hand. His voice was cold, empty. It was the voice of someone who had already decided what he was willing to do. We are patient. We are thorough. And we never ever forget. You have 1 month to surrender those responsible for the massacre. High Speaker Velcor and the 16 council members who voted for execution. Surrender them for trial under human law or we return. And next time we won't be so gentle. The broadcast ended. Across council space, billions of beings watched the footage. They saw the human fleet appear from nowhere. They saw the destruction of Thesar Prime's defenses. They saw the precision, the control, the restraint that somehow felt more terrifying than mindless violence. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber where Ji-woo died was now ringed with heavy security. The representatives were afraid. They could admit that now. Humanity had become the monster they'd feared. High Speaker Velcor stood at his podium, his silver skin somehow paler than before. This is an outrage, an act of war. We must respond with overwhelming force. With what? The Sorvine representative spread her tentacles in frustration. Did you see what they just did? They destroyed an entire planetary defense network in 30 minutes. Without losing a single ship, without harming a single civilian. That level of precision is terrifying. It's a trick. A show. They can't maintain that, can't they? Velcor, we need to face reality. Humanity has become something we don't understand. They advanced in ways we never predicted, and now they're angry. You made them angry. I made them. The council voted together. 43 species voted your way. 43 species you pressured and bribed and threatened. This is your doing. You wanted to break humanity's spirit. Instead, you've awakened something that might break us all. Other representatives joined in. Species that had quietly supported the Vrelians now backed away. The political coalition that controlled the council was fracturing. Fear did that. Fear made allies into strangers. We need to mobilize everything, Velcor insisted. Call up every fleet. Every species contributes ships. We create an armada so large that humanity will have no choice but to surrender. Or, said the Sorvine, we could surrender the 17 individuals responsible and end this before it gets worse. Never. That would destroy council authority. Every species would think they could defy us. Council authority is already destroyed. Humanity just proved that. Now we're just deciding how many people die before we admit it. The vote was close. 25 species supported military mobilization. 22 opposed. By council law, a simple majority was enough. The Vrelians would get their armada. High Speaker Velcor immediately sent out calls to allied species. He promised rewards. He called in favors. He threatened trade embargoes. Within a week, he'd assembled a fleet of 5,000 warships. It was the largest military force in council history. Ships from 6 different species, all working together to crush the human threat. They called it the Enforcement Fleet. Its mission was simple: proceed to human space, destroy any resistance and force humanity to surrender unconditionally. If humanity refused, they would destroy Earth itself. What the Vrelians didn't know was that every move they made was being watched. Captain Bo-Ra Shin commanded the Silent Wind, a human stealth vessel. Her ship was so advanced it could park in orbit of a council world and never be detected. She'd been watching Vrelian space for months, mapping everything, recording everything. She watched the enforcement fleet assemble. She counted ships. She identified classes and capabilities. She noted weaknesses, and she reported everything back to Admiral Sora. They're gathering at the Tartarus system, Bo-Ra reported. Looks like they plan to use it as a staging point before pushing into human space. Tartarus? Admiral Sora studied the charts. That's one of our mining outposts. Small population, light defenses. They probably think they can take it easily and use it as a forward base. Perfect. Admiral Sora smiled, but there was no humor in it. Let them come. We'll be waiting. The enforcement fleet began its march toward human space with great fanfare. Propaganda broadcasts showed the mighty armada. 5,000 ships moving in perfect formation. Council citizens were told this would end the war quickly. Humanity would see this force and surrender. The fleet arrived at the Tartarus system 3 weeks later. Their sensors detected the human mining station and a small defense force. Maybe 30 ships. The fleet commander, a Vrelian admiral named Kelvosh, laughed at the sight. They're actually trying to defend this? With 30 ships? He opened a channel to the human vessels. Human forces, you are outnumbered more than 100 to 1. Surrender immediately and you will be treated fairly. Resist and you will be destroyed. The human ships didn't respond. They just held their position around the mining station. So be it. Admiral Kelvosh gave the order to advance. The enforcement fleet moved forward in a massive wave, 5,000 ships pushing into the system. It should have been glorious. It should have been the moment the Council's power was reaffirmed. Then the trap sprung. From behind asteroids, from the system's outer edge, from every hidden position, human ships appeared. But these weren't like the 30 visible defenders. These were different, smaller, faster, and there were thousands of them, automated drones, each one controlled by artificial intelligence, each one willing to ram enemy ships at relativistic speeds, each one carrying enough explosives to cripple a capital ship. Admiral Kelvosh realized his mistake instantly. Fall back! It's a trap. All ships fall back. But it was too late. The drones swarmed like insects. They were too small and too fast for capital ship weapons to target effectively. Point defense systems burned out trying to stop them all. Ships collided trying to evade. The perfect formation became chaos. The human defenders moved in. Those 30 ships weren't defensive vessels. They were heavy attack cruisers. They fired relativistic kinetic weapons that couldn't be dodged. They used quantum jammers that disrupted Council communications. They coordinated perfectly while the enforcement fleet fell apart. The battle lasted 6 hours. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. Of 5,000 Council ships, fewer than 200 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. Admiral Kelvosh died when his flagship was struck by 3 kinetic rounds simultaneously. When it was over, Commodore Deho broadcast one more time. This time his message was aimed at the fleeing survivors. Run home. Tell them what you saw. Tell them this is what humanity does when we show restraint. Tell them we could have chased you. We could have hunted down every survivor. We chose not to. Tell them to imagine what comes next if they don't surrender the 17 murderers. Tell them we're done playing. The survivors fled. They carried the footage with them. And across Council space, species that had supported the war began to reconsider. Some quietly withdrew their fleets. Some sent secret messages to human intelligence. The coalition was breaking, but High Speaker Velcor wasn't ready to give up. Late at night, alone in his chambers, he received a message. It was delivered by a drone that appeared on his balcony. The message was simple, a list of names, addresses, and daily routines. His children, his grandchildren, his extended family. At the bottom was one line: "We know where they are. We know where you all are. This is your last chance." For the first time, High Speaker Velcor felt real fear. The Galactic Council was dying. Not from human weapons, but from something more deadly: fear and distrust. Species that had worked together for thousands of years now accused each other of bringing disaster. Trade routes closed. Ancient alliances shattered overnight. The government that ruled half the galaxy was tearing itself apart. 3 groups emerged from the chaos. The Sorvine led what they called the Peace Faction. They wanted to surrender the 17 council members responsible for the massacre and negotiate with humanity. Better to sacrifice 17 beings than risk billions. The Vrelians led the war faction. They refused to surrender. They called for total war against humanity, claiming that giving in now would destroy council authority forever. Better to die fighting than live in shame. Then there were the species that wanted nothing to do with either side. They declared neutrality and pulled back to their home systems. They closed their borders and hoped the storm would pass them by. President Hyunwoo watched this all happen from Earth. His intelligence officers brought him reports every day. The council was fracturing exactly as he'd planned. But he took no joy in it. "We're destroying something that took thousands of years to build," he said quietly to Admiral Sora. "Even if we win, the galaxy will never be the same." "They destroyed it when they murdered our people," Sora replied. "We're just making sure everyone sees what they did." The president nodded slowly. But late at night, alone in his office, he wondered if Jiwoo would have approved. She'd believed in the council. She'd died believing peace was possible. Now humanity was burning down everything she'd worked for. But there was no going back. The war had its own momentum now. What surprised everyone was what humanity did next. While human warships blockaded Vrelian worlds, a different kind of fleet appeared near Sorvine space. Medical ships, supply vessels, relief workers. The Sorvine had suffered food shortages because of the trade disruptions. Human ships brought food. Captain Yuna Jang commanded these humanitarian fleets. She was young, barely 30, but she understood something important. Humanity's war was with the council leadership, not with civilians. Every species that suffered because of this war was another potential ally. "We're here to help," she told shocked Sorvine officials. "You voted against the war. You tried to stop it? That means something to us." The Sorvine accepted the aid cautiously at first, but the humans asked for nothing in return. They delivered food, medicine, and supplies, then left. No strings attached. No demands. Just help. Other neutral species watched this carefully. When a plague struck a species called the Methan, human medical teams arrived before anyone else. Dr. Hana Lee led the response, using her knowledge of xenobiology to develop treatments. The plague was stopped in weeks instead of months. The galaxy watched in confusion. How could humanity be so ruthlessly efficient at war and so genuinely helpful in peace? The two things didn't fit together. Unless you understood humans, they could hate the leaders while pitying the people. They could destroy military targets while protecting civilians. They held grudges forever, but they also forgave easily if you earned it. This confused the council species. To them, war meant total war. Hatred meant hating everyone. But humans were different. They could separate the crime from the species. They could punish the guilty while helping the innocent. High Speaker Velcor didn't understand any of this. He saw humanity's humanitarian work as a trick, a way to divide the council further. He became more desperate, more dangerous. Then he made his worst mistake. In a secret facility deep in Vrelian space, scientists had been working on weapons forbidden by every galactic law, doomsday weapons. Devices that could destabilize stars and turn them into supernovas. The Council had banned these centuries ago. But the Vrelians had built them anyway, hidden away for emergencies. Velcor decided this was an emergency. If humanity wouldn't stop, he'd make them stop. He'd show them that the Council had teeth. He'd destroy a human colony world and force them to surrender. His target was New Sol, humanity's second largest colony. 800 million people. A thriving world with cities and farms and universities. Children grew up there. Old people retired there. It was home. A team of Vrelian Special Operations soldiers infiltrated the system. They planted the doomsday device near New Sol's star. Then they activated it and fled. The device began its work immediately. Deep in the star's core, quantum reactions started cascading. The star began to destabilize. New Sol's scientists detected it within hours. They ran the calculations and felt their blood turn to ice. The star would go supernova in 72 hours. There was no way to stop it. New Sol was doomed. 800 million people. 72 hours. It was impossible. You couldn't evacuate that many people that fast. The largest evacuation in human history had moved 50 million people in a month. This was 16 times larger with less than 3 days. But humanity didn't accept impossible. Every available human ship raced to New Sol. Military transports, cargo vessels, cruise ships, private yachts. If it could fly and hold people, it went. Admiral Sora coordinated from Earth, moving pieces on a board that covered light years. Captain Deho arrived with the entire First Fleet. His warships weren't designed for carrying passengers, but they made room. Cargo bays became shelters. Hangar decks became housing. Every space that could hold people was used. On the ground, the evacuation was organized chaos. 800 million people being moved to spaceports as fast as possible. There were no riots, no panic. People helped each other. They carried children and elders. They made sure no one was left behind. Dr. Hana Lee coordinated the medical evacuation. She made sure hospitals were emptied, that sick people got on ships with proper medical facilities, that no one died because they were too weak to move. The evacuation ran for 68 hours straight. No breaks, no rest. Every human involved worked until they collapsed from exhaustion, then got up and worked more. Because 800 million lives depended on them. With 4 hours remaining, the last transport lifted off. Captain Yuna did a final sweep of the planet's surface with her sensors. I'm reading 0 human life signs. We got them all. Every single person. The fleet jumped to safety just as New Sol's star exploded. The planet that had been home to millions vanished in nuclear fire. But the people were safe. All 800 million of them. Humanity had done the impossible. President Hyunwoo stood before the cameras to address the galaxy. Behind him, rescued children from New Sol played in temporary shelters. He looked tired, but his voice was steady. The Vrelians tried to murder 800 million people. They failed. Not because we have the best weapons or the fastest ships. They failed because we value life above all else. Every single citizen of New Sol is safe. We saved them all. Even the pets. Even the fish in the aquariums. Everything that lived, we saved. He paused and looked directly at the camera. High Speaker Velcor, you tried to make us monsters. You wanted us to respond with equal horror. You wanted us to prove we're no better than you. But we are better. We'll always be better. Because we choose life over death. We choose mercy over revenge. We choose to save people instead of killing them. He gestured to the children playing behind him. This is what you tried to destroy. This is what we protected. 800 million souls who will grow old and have children and build new homes. You failed, and now the galaxy knows exactly who the monsters are. The broadcast ended, and across council space something shifted. 17 species that had remained neutral now openly condemned the Vrelians. 5 species that had supported the war withdrew their support. Even some Vrelian citizens began protesting their own government. The Sorvine ambassador arrived at Earth's orbital station with an offer. We've located every council member who voted for the massacre. We've found the coordinates of all Vrelian military installations. We'll give you everything. Just end this war before more innocent people die. Ambassador Kyung-Soo Lee, who had replaced the murdered Ji-woo Park, met with them. What do you want in return? Promise us that when this is over, we'll build something better. Not the old council. Something new. Something where this can never happen again. Kyung-Soo nodded slowly. That was always the plan. We're not destroying the council to conquer. We're destroying it to rebuild. Better. But there was one more problem. Dr. Hana Lee discovered it while analyzing Vrelian intelligence data. The doomsday device used on New Seoul wasn't unique. The Vrelians had built 50 more. They were hidden across council space, and Velcor was desperate enough to use them all. If we push too hard, he'll activate them, Hana explained to the president. He'll destroy half the galaxy rather than surrender. We need to force him to stop now, immediately, before he can push the button. Admiral Sora, General Minseo, and Commodore Daeho gathered for an emergency meeting. They had one option. One terrible choice. The Extinction is ready, Engineer Ji-Hoon Ryu reported. He was the lead designer on humanity's newest weapon. A dreadnought so powerful it could destroy a planet by itself. One ship. Enough firepower to crack a world. We built it hoping we'd never need it. But we need it now, General Minseo said quietly. We need to threaten Vrelia Prime itself. Force Velcor to surrender before he uses those doomsday devices. That's genocide, Daeho said. Threatening to kill 18 billion Vrelians. How are we better than them if we do that? We're better because we won't actually do it, the president said. We're better because it's a bluff. But it's a bluff that needs to be believable. And that means someone needs to be willing to push the button if they call us on it. Everyone looked at Daeho. He closed his eyes. I'll do it, he said finally. I'll take the Extinction to Vrelia Prime. I'll make the threat. And if they call my bluff? He opened his eyes. They were haunted. I'll do what I have to do. Before he left, he visited the memorial to the 17 victims. He stood before Ji-woo's hologram for a long time. Forgive me, he whispered. Forgive what I'm about to do in your name. The Extinction launched the next day. The most powerful weapon humanity had ever built, carrying one man's terrible burden toward the Vrelian homeworld. The Extinction dropped out of quantum space above Vrelia Prime like a nightmare made real. It was massive, dwarfing even the largest Vrelian battleships. Its weapons could be seen from the planet's surface, enormous cannons that could crack continents. 18 billion Vrelians looked up at their sky and felt terror for the first time in their history. Commodore Daeho Kim sat in the command chair and felt sick. He'd killed enemy soldiers in battle. That was war. That was necessary. But this, threatening to murder 18 billion civilians, this made him a monster. But if he didn't do this, Velcor would activate those doomsday devices. Billions would die across dozens of worlds. He opened a broadcast on all frequencies. Every screen on Vrelia Prime showed his face. Every communication device carried his voice. People of Vrelia Prime. I am Commodore Daeho Kim. I command the human vessel Extinction. You can see my ship above you. You can see its weapons. I need you to understand what they can do. In 6 hours I can destroy every city on your planet. I can turn Vrelia Prime into a lifeless rock. And there is nothing your government can do to stop me. On the planet below, panic spread. People ran to their homes. Some tried to flee to shelters. Others just stood in the streets staring up at the massive ship overhead. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to kill you. You didn't murder our ambassador. You didn't vote for war. Most of you probably didn't even know what your leaders were planning, so I'm giving you a choice. You have 24 hours to surrender High Speaker Velcor and the 16 council members who ordered the massacre. Surrender them for trial under galactic law. Deactivate all doomsday devices. Do this and I leave. Your world survives. Your people live. He paused and his voice became harder. Colder. If you don't, I have been authorized to use any means necessary to protect humanity and all peaceful species, and that includes turning your homeworld into a warning that will last forever. 24 hours. Choose wisely. The broadcast ended. On Vrelia Prime, the government immediately declared the threat was a bluff. High Speaker Velcor appeared on state broadcasts, telling his people that humans were too weak, too soft to follow through. They would never commit genocide, but Dr. Hana Lee had been working through the night. She'd contacted Vrelian scientists who opposed the war. She'd sent them data, evidence, technical specifications. And most importantly, she'd sent them the truth about what their government had been hiding. Within hours, Vrelian citizens knew about the doomsday devices. They knew their own government had destroyed New Sol. They knew about the hidden weapons programs. Everything their leaders had lied about was suddenly public knowledge. Deho broadcast again, but this time directly to the Vrelian people, bypassing government channels entirely. Humanity's quantum communication network could reach every device on the planet. There was no way to block it. People of Vrelia Prime, your government has been lying to you. They built weapons banned by galactic law. They destroyed New Sol and tried to murder 800 million humans. They've hidden 50 more doomsday devices across Council space. If I leave here without those weapons deactivated, your leaders will use them. Billions will die. Maybe trillions, he showed them footage. Satellite images of the hidden weapons facilities. Records of government meetings where these crimes were planned. Evidence that couldn't be denied. I know you didn't choose this. I know most of you want peace. So I'm asking you directly. Remove your leaders. Deactivate these weapons. Show the galaxy that Vrelian people are better than their government. You have 8 hours left. On Vrelia Prime, something remarkable happened. Citizens poured into the streets by the millions. They surrounded government buildings. They demanded answers. The military was called to disperse the crowds, but the soldiers refused. They'd seen the evidence too. Many of them had family they wanted to protect. High Speaker Velcor watched from his office as his entire government collapsed around him. He sent urgent messages to military commanders, ordering them to prepare the doomsday devices. But the commanders wouldn't answer. They'd seen what those weapons did to New Sol. They wouldn't be part of mass murder. Velcor gathered his inner circle, the 16 council members who'd voted for the massacre. They retreated to a hidden bunker deep underground. If they couldn't win, they'd take half the galaxy with them. They began activation sequences for all 50 doomsday devices. But Commander Wu Jinhan had been inserted onto Vrelia Prime weeks ago. His special operations team had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for this exact scenario. Vrelian defectors had given them the bunker's location. They moved fast. The assault was brutal and quick. Human soldiers fought through automated defenses and loyal guards. They lost 3 people breaking into the bunker. But they made it to the control room just as Velcor's hand reached for the final activation switch. Wu Jin aimed his weapon. One shot and this would be over. Velcor would be dead. The devices would be safe. But he hesitated, because standing behind him was Sujin Park, the widow of Ambassador Jiwoo Park. She'd demanded to come on this mission. She'd trained with the team. She'd earned her place. And now she stepped past Wu Jin to face the being who'd ordered her wife's murder. Velcor sneered at her. You'll kill us all anyway. Humans are just better liars, better monsters. Sujin stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something no one expected. She lowered her weapon. My wife believed in peace. She believed that even species who make terrible mistakes deserve the chance to change. That's why she died. That's why I'm here. Not to kill you. To prove she was right. She walked to the control terminal and began shutting down the activation sequence. Velcor lunged for her, but Wu Jin was faster. He tackled the high speaker to the ground. It's over, Sujin said quietly, tears streaming down her face. No more death. No more revenge. Just justice. The way Jiwoo would have wanted. The trial took 3 months. Unlike the sham trial that had started this war, humanity organized something legitimate. Representatives from dozens of species served as judges. Witnesses testified in person. Evidence was presented in detail. Everything was broadcast live across the galaxy so everyone could see justice being done properly. High Speaker Velcor and the 16 council members were found guilty. The evidence was overwhelming, but the sentence surprised everyone. Not execution, not torture. Life imprisonment in a human-controlled facility, where they would spend their remaining years working to repair the damage they'd caused. We don't believe in revenge, President Hyunwoo explained to the galaxy. We believe in justice. These beings will live. They'll have food and shelter and medical care, but they'll also work. They'll help rebuild what they destroyed. They'll spend every day facing what they did. That's justice. With the war criminals in custody and the doomsday devices deactivated, President Hyunwoo announced the Marshall Plan for Council Space. Humanity would spend the next decade helping rebuild what the war had destroyed. Human engineers would help repair damaged worlds. Human doctors would treat the wounded. Human teachers would help educate a new generation. "We didn't fight this war to conquer," he said. "We fought to make sure it never happens again. And now we're going to build something better." The old Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place, humanity proposed something new, the Confederation of Free Worlds. Every species got an equal vote. No one held permanent power. Disputes would be settled by law, not force. The rights of young species would be protected. 53 species signed the founding charter immediately. More joined over the following months. The capital would be built in the system next to New Sol, on a world they named New Hope. The destroyed colony would become a memorial, a reminder of what hatred could cost. Admiral Sora became the first supreme commander of the Confederation Defense Force. Her mission was to protect all member species equally. The massive human fleet that had won the war was integrated with ships from other species. Former enemies trained together, learning to trust each other. Commodore Daiho Kim retired from military service. He couldn't carry a weapon anymore. The weight of what he'd almost done haunted him. Instead, he became ambassador to the Vrelian people. He dedicated his life to reconciliation, to proving that humans and Vrelians could build something better together. The Extinction, the dreadnought that had threatened Vrelia Prime, was decommissioned. Daiho personally oversaw its dismantling. The weapons were destroyed. The hull was recycled into building materials for New Hope. The ship that represented humanity's capacity for destruction became the foundation for peace. Dr. Hana Lee established the Institute for Interspecies Understanding. She worked with scientists from dozens of species, using her knowledge to help them understand each other. The woman who had designed biological weapons now dedicated her life to preventing the conditions that made such weapons necessary. Sujin Park took her wife's position as ambassador to the Confederation. She carried on Jiwoo's dream of galactic unity. Every morning she looked at her wife's picture and promised to make the galaxy Jiwoo had believed in. On the anniversary of the massacre, they built a memorial where the council chamber once stood. It listed every name of those who died in the war, human, Vrelian, and others, millions of names carved in stone. At the center, illuminated eternally, were 17 names. The first name, Ambassador Jiwoo Park. The inscription read, "They shed human blood." Humanity replied with justice, not genocide. May we remember the cost of both tyranny and mercy. May we always choose the harder path. 50 years later, an elderly Daiho stood at the memorial with a young Vrelian student. Her name was Kassira, and she was writing a paper about the war for her university class. She looked up at him with curious eyes. "Why didn't you destroy us? You had the power. We had murdered your people. Why show mercy?" Daiho looked at Jiwoo's name on the wall. His eyes were tired but peaceful. "Because the moment we chose genocide, we would have become what we fought against." Ambassador Park died believing that even species who commit great evils can change. We honored her by proving her right. He placed his hand on the memorial, feeling the carved letters under his fingers. This is humanity's true strength. Not our weapons, not our fleets, our ability to remain human even when facing extinction, to choose mercy when revenge would be easier, to build when destroying would be simpler. Kassira looked up at him thoughtfully. "Is that why you're called the soft species in the old council records?" Daiho smiled sadly. "Soft, yes, like water is soft. Soft enough to nourish life. Hard enough to carve canyons through mountains." The old council learned the difference too late. He walked away slowly, leaning on his cane. Behind him, the young Vrelian continued reading the names. Around them, the city of New Hope bustled with life. Humans and Vrelians and dozens of other species working together, building together, living together. The sun set over the memorial, casting long shadows across the names. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new disputes to settle, new problems to solve, but they would face them together, as equals, as partners. Because that's what Jiwoo Park had died believing in, and humanity had honored her by making it real. Not through conquest, not through domination, but through the hardest choice of all, mercy, justice, and the courage to build something better from the ashes of war. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Human blood had been shed, and humanity had replied not with extinction but with an example that would echo through the centuries. That true strength lies not in the ability to destroy but in the wisdom to spare. That justice matters more than revenge? That mercy in the end is the most powerful weapon of all.